Welcome to the Cole Memo. I'm your host, Cole Preston. This is episode 2 in my series on the legal sex industry in Nevada, what I've been calling the legal sex industry in America. If you haven't checked out episode 1, please do. It's only 8 minutes long, and if you'd like to find it, there's a link in the episode description for today's episode, which will redirect you to episode 1. Once again, it's only 8 minutes, and it sets up why exactly I'm talking about this. You can also go directly to thecolememo.com/sex to access episode 1 and all other episodes that have been released to date. If you've seen episode 1, you know that in today's episode, episode 2, we are featuring the perspective of Torrey Lisa. Fun fact about Torrey Lisa that she mentions in this show: right now, I'm displaying an invitation that she received from the White House, from Michelle Obama and Dr. Jill Biden. They requested the pleasure of her company, and here's photographic evidence of her company. This is the individual I interviewed, Torrey Lisa, and you can see Michelle Obama and Dr. Jill Biden. So this is the individual we are interviewing today. Another thing that this individual mentions about today's show is that they are followed by a former president. And here is some photographic evidence of that. That's from their Twitter. Folks, you're listening to the Cole Memo. Every episode of the Cole Memo is released in audio, video, and transcript format. To find the transcript, audio, or video version of any episode, please refer to the description of the episode that you're listening to now. Within that description, you can find a link that will take you to our website, which will display the transcript for this episode and the platforms where you can find this episode in audio or video formats. If you're unable to locate the episode description on whichever platform you're listening from, simply note the episode number and visit thecolememo.com. From there, you can find the corresponding episode, and then you will be able to access the audio, video, and transcript version of that episode. You might also find any links that we reference during the episode so that you might be able to do your own research. If you're not listening to this episode of the Cole Memo on Patreon, then you're listening to this episode later than our patrons. To become a patron, go to thecolememo.com/Patreon. Once again, that's thecolememo.com/Patreon. It's a great way to support our show, but one of the best ways to support our show is absolutely free. Subscribe to or follow our show. Leave a positive review from wherever you're listening to us from. Favorite this episode, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, or post a review. Your engagement and support is appreciated. Today is December 2nd, 2023. The interview showcased in today's episode was released on October 22nd, 2023. So one of the things I want to make clear before I get into this episode is that, first of all, you can connect with today's participant by going to torreylisa.com. Once again, Torrey Lisa is in this episode, and you can connect with her by going to torreylisa.com. That's TORREYLISA.com. And I wanted to make it very clear that it's been made clear to me by both Torrey and her former employer that she didn't necessarily have permission to call me from the brothel, but we were both willing participants in this conversation, and so we will be releasing this conversation in its entirety. Folks, enjoy this episode of The Cole Memo featuring Torrey Lisa, our first guest to call us from a brothel. Enjoy. Hey, Torrey, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Cole?
I'm doing great, and I've been looking forward to this conversation all day. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Not a problem. I'm happy to have this conversation, and I've looked forward to it too.
Yeah. So really quick, could you give folks just a brief introduction? Tell us your name and what's your profession? What do you currently do?
Okay. My name is Torrey Lisa, and it's actually my real name. I don't use a stage name in the industry because I'm very proud of what I do. And what I do is a combination of things that all fall under the umbrella of being a sex worker. I am an online sex worker. I create adult content, so I am a professional model. I'm also a porn star with a particular studio. And then I am also a burlesque performer, but my full-time gig is I am an in brothel, full-time in service, full service brothel worker. So I'm a legal prostitute in the state of Nevada, just outside of Reno.
Yeah. And for all of those reasons, you fit right in here at the Chillinois podcast. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. People might already know why I wanted to sit down with you, but if I could put it in a nutshell, I've always found it fascinating that you can simply cross an imaginary line and then all of a sudden the rules change. And Nevada is a great example of that. Of course, everybody is keenly aware of the fact that we talk about cannabis legalization all the time, which is another one of those instances in the United States where if you cross a state line, all of a sudden the laws are different. So legal prostitution or legal sex work has been allowed in Nevada for quite some time, and there are licensed brothels in the state. I think it's such a cool conversation, and I want to get to that. But first, I just want to talk about how you found yourself where you are today. I've been reading your story, and it's fascinating. I mean, like, I've seen some of the different questions you've gotten about your arc, and the way that you answer it is just so perfectly. So I don't want to try to do that myself. I want to just get right into it. Can you give me a highlight reel of like your kind of your childhood through adulthood? I just want to hear a little bit about like what your childhood was like, and then I like I say, I want to get the highlight reel so that we can talk about, your experience with your partner and everything else.
Sure. A lot of people have a lot of assumptions about sex workers, that they're, this is like the end of the line for them and a last desperate attempt to do to do something to earn money. And for me, it was actually very purposeful. But my story is actually, I was the perpetual good girl. I was a preacher's daughter, and then my dad went into working with the government as a law enforcement officer. So I had to be twice as good. I couldn't get away with things. He was very strict. I had a lot of supervision, if you will. So I had both parents who were married more than 55 years. I was one of 5 kids. So I didn't come from a broken home. It wasn't, the perfect family, but we did have a solid family background. I met my husband in college. It's kind of a long story with that one, but I married a man in the military. So I had to, follow etiquette. He was both an officer and enlisted, which was kind of unusual. It was a pilot program. So I had to switch between protocols between being an enlisted wife and an officer's wife. And there's 2 totally different set of rules, for that. We were married for 10 years. We actually got divorced. He went off to combat. He was wounded in combat. So because we had 3 kids together, I came by his side because they didn't think he was going to make it. Well, he did make it, and I ended up remarrying, bringing our family back together again, and being a full-time caregiver to him for 14 years. In the course of that, I was pursuing my own college degrees. When I say multiple degrees, because I had changed my degree programs multiple times, being transient in the military, a lot of the credits didn't quite transfer. So I have a lot of college underneath my belt. So I ran my own businesses that were portable. So I ran my own media business. I ran a couple other businesses, and they weren't the MLM businesses. They were actual, licensed through the state and so on, and provided more of a service industry type of industry. So then I started writing, and my final degree program was in creative writing and journalism. I was running a very popular blog because in my advocacy work, after my now ex was wounded in combat, there were a lot of things that were broken in the system. So I spent a great deal of time rubbing elbows with the who's who in Washington, D.C. So I was in the political realm. I was a speaker at a lot of keynote events that, I met with like top level VA officials, military officials, and so on. I was even a guest at the White House, and a former president still follows me on Twitter. So there's a lot of good girlness in there. Like, I did all the right things. I acted the way I was supposed to act. I said the things I was supposed to say. I followed the script, as I say. And part of my advocacy work was being able to stand up to wrongdoing, accountability, and oversight, and so on. Like, some senators, you would take my call. If I called their office, they would patch me right through. You don't get that if you aren't somebody who, has a voice that others respect. So one thing led to another, and a few years ago, my life just basically imploded. 26 years of building a life just came crashing down. I had to go into hiding for about 6 months, and I just kind of bounced around and tried to figure out, what am I going to do? I've got education. I have experience. I worked in the medical field. I worked in the legal field. I worked in management. And then when I became my own boss, I was, a CEO for many years of 3 distinct businesses that I was running one at a time over the course of the years. So I had a lot of experience, but I had forgotten about the fact that, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, who am I? I've been doing what everybody expected me to do, but what do I want to do? What makes me happy? Because right now I'm not very happy. I mean, I have got to reclaim this for myself and not rely on anyone else to participate in that or to take it away. So I basically just took ownership of my life, and I took accountability for myself. I was holding the world at large accountable, but I also had to walk the walk and talk the talk. I had to be able to do that for myself. So I did some soul searching. I had been seeing what I call my Zen mentor. She's a Buddhist chaplain, and I had actually been sitting with her every week for 5 years straight without missing a day. And I was learning how to become more centered, more aligned, more at peace with myself, to release a lot of the codependency that came with the type of marriage that I had, and the circumstances that I was in. And by then, my kids were literally, the day I left was the day my youngest turned 18. And he eventually, once I was able to get our own place, he moved in with me. And then his other brother moved in with me during COVID. So I brought my family back together again under the same roof, with minor exceptions. And in that process, though, I was not going to cut off aspects of myself. The interesting thing is during the divorce, after the first marriage, I became an ethical non-monogamist. I started dating within the swinger scene. So this was back in 2003, 2004. So I had experience with ethical non-monogamy
And really quick,
a long time ago.
Really quick, is ethical non-monogamy, is that basically a way of saying like an open relationship? Am
Correct.
I wrong?
It's an umbrella, and it includes swingers, open relationship dynamics, polyamory. Although polyamory wasn't a buzzword back then, it was just swingers or open were the main terms. So when I went back to Washington, D.C., thinking that my ex was not going to make it and we needed to say our final goodbyes, I, asked for 2 weeks off from work and kissed my boyfriend goodbye and said, I'll be back in a few weeks. And 2 weeks turned into 2 months, and et cetera, et cetera. So I went back into the second marriage very open about the fact that I had identified during that divorce period that I am bisexual at the very least, and that I wanted to have an open dynamic It didn't work out. We tried. Come to find out, he likes his cake and wants to eat it too. He was the one that was cheating on me. And I was like, there's no reason for us to have infidelity when I am so open and endorsing of an open marriage. But it was not a two-way street.
So to be clear,
was the jealous type, and he just didn't have the emotional capacity, the emotional intelligence, and the maturity to navigate an open dynamic. So I went back to being monogamous in our second marriage, much to my dismay. So when I was assessing the things that made me unhappy and evaluating the things that did make me happy, I looked back on, before I had even met him, I was a professional swimwear model, and I wanted to get back into modeling. But I was 49 years old at that time. And I thought to myself, oh gosh, nobody's going to want to see a 49-year-old mother of three. Nobody's going to want to date a 49-year-old, who's had three kids. Like, I figured, I was listening to all the programming that society says that your value is basically before you're 40. But I said, fuck it. I was just like, fuck it. I'm going to start dating again. And I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm a bisexual woman, that I've got kinks. I want to be able to start living life. And an interesting thing happened. In the dating scene, a lot of the younger guys apparently are into the older, more mature women. And there's such a thing as cougars. And so I learned very, very quickly that I was actually a hot commodity. I had joined Tinder. Oh my goodness, Cole, you're not gonna believe this. So I had joined Tinder thinking, okay, I'll just dip my toes in the dating world. This will be an efficient way to do it, right? I had 3,600 matches in the first 48 hours. And I was like, holy shit. Okay, this is work. Now I have to swipe through all this. And I was like, wow. Simultaneously speaking, I was also exploring ethical non-monogamy in the polyamory avenue, I guess you could say. I knew that I needed an actual connection. I couldn't just have so-called casual sex in like hookups. The hookup culture really didn't fit for me as far as relationships are concerned, partnerships. So I had gone to a local BDSM club that held classes about a variety of topics, and they had like a monthly polyamory meeting. So I wanted to talk to other people in polyamorous dynamics to understand it, to how to navigate it, and how to be a really good partner for any type of partnership that I chose to step into. That's where I met my first primary partner, and he was also a dom. And so he was introducing me into the BDSM world in a more formal way, because when I was a swinger, yeah, we did light bondage and, things like that. But my days as a swinger, I learned, I'm an exhibitionist, which fed into the whole modeling and showing off my imperfect body. So I started modeling, and I was doing kink and fetish and BDSM modeling. I worked with multiple photographers, and I was producing a lot of content, but I had nowhere really to put it. I couldn't put it on social media. But I wanted to show it off. So I started posting some of it over on a site called FetLife, and it got quite a large response. And I thought, well, shoot, I'm just going to go ahead and monetize this. And I started an OnlyFans, and I was wanting to get into porn and things like that, because what was happening was, as I started dating, my glow up was instant. Like, my glow up after I left was instant. But as I started doing the things that
Sorry, what do you mean by
free?
What do you mean by your glow up?
My glow up? Oh my gosh. Well, for starters, without even trying, without going to the gym or dieting, I lost 40 pounds. I actually used to be fairly pudgy. I'm still curvy. I'm only 5 foot tall, but I've got curves. I've got a lot of ass. So I'm very curvy. I had a peach on me, and it's like women have been taught to like hide those things or to be ashamed of those things. And here I was. I don't have a lot of stretch marks, but I do have stretch marks, and I wasn't hiding that. I wasn't trying to Photoshop. In fact, I worked with photographers who specifically did not Photoshop my pictures because I wanted to show that women of my age are sensual, they're very sexual, they're very alluring, and that my value is well beyond what's in my brain or what sheepskin is hanging on my wall or how many kids I've produced in this world or how good my marriage is, et cetera, et cetera. It was like, I'm beautiful and I want to be able to express that. So I got into a throuple dynamic. I was what's called a unicorn. I was the third in a couple dynamic where she and I were the girlfriend and girlfriend. He and I were boyfriend and girlfriend. They were girlfriend and boyfriend, and we were all a cohesive partnership. And that became the core dynamic. And then I had accessory type secondary partners, and we all knew each other. We actually would all go out. We could go to a social event and we could all be in the same room. So I stepped into a world where there was no jealousy and where your sexuality was actually very liberated and celebrated and respected. And that's the other thing. There was respect and consent and so on. So I was moving through those circles. I was just having the time of my life, to be honest. And the happier I became, the more beautiful I would appear. If people who knew me then and saw me now were like, holy shit, girl, like you were just glowing up, because I emitted light. I just would glow with this joy in my life. And it showed in my pictures, and it showed when I became a burlesque performer. I felt very empowered. I felt very alive. I felt very fulfilled. And it was a process of self-actualization that stems from Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which we'll get into in a second. But I hope that answers your question about like what my trajectory was, what I did before becoming a full-time sex worker. I was doing hot girl shit. And I was making good money doing it. And I took the knowledge of being an online sex worker when the pandemic hit. I paid it forward by teaching, because I was a business owner already. I was a writer. I was already branded on the internet. I had my own following before I even did any of these things. I lost a lot of people along the way when I started announcing these salacious things. I mean, people were clutching their pearls and, oh, you used to be such a good girl. And I was like, exactly. And that is not what I'm going to be anymore. I am going to be an ethical woman. I'm going to be a woman with integrity. I have standards. I have boundaries. It's not as though it's a free for all with me. I'm very, very well boundaried, but I have standards that must be met in every area of my life, whether it's in my relationships or my work ethic or whatever. So, I had people that were they had this cognitive dissonance. They're like, but I knew you before, but I know you now. And I'm not sure how I feel about this, because I've been taught that that's naughty and that's dirty and that's shameful and that's slutty and that's whatever. But at the same time, they saw how happy I was and how empowered I was. And they had like this twinge of, well, I want that too. So what's your secret, Torrey? How are you doing it? So I started giving advice on how to run an OnlyFans account. And I now have over 9,000 people that I've mentored since COVID hit on how to be an online sex worker. So I pay it forward. I pay it forward a lot, especially when it comes to empowering yourself in regard to expressing yourself, in regard to still being a good girl. Like, I have to follow the law. I'm not going to sacrifice my safety, my wellness, my well-being for anyone for any reason. I did that when I was married, I'm not going to do that anymore. So I've been living my best life doing hot girl shit. And then I figured out that I needed to take it one more step further because, like I said, what's next? I've already checked off, okay, I'm a porn star. There's thousands of pictures of my ass on the internet. I make money off of that too. I do shows and people throw money at me to take my clothes off on stage in front of a whole audience. Like, what is stopping me from doing this one next thing? And the one next thing was somewhat of a idea that I got because I had received so many requests from men and women that they wanted to hook up. And I was like, some people approach with levels of disrespect or entitlement, thirsty guys that just have zero manners whatsoever. Not even relationship material. They're like, hey, baby, unsolicited dick pics for days, like I can just open my inbox and I would have hundreds and hundreds of messages from people demanding access to me. And I thought, you know what? I'll shut this down real quick. You can have access to me, but you're going to pay me and it's going to be legal. And so I receive a lot of hate and criticism for choosing to do what I do. But the thing is I have a great deal of compassion for human suffering. I know what it's like to be touch-starved. And it all ties in with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I had studied extensively. Intimacy, human connection is on the bottom of that pyramid because it is absolutely essential for your survival, essential, along with food, water, shelter, clothing, okay? Humans cannot survive without it, let alone thrive. And that's why intimacy, human connection, sex is the only thing listed twice on Maslow's hierarchy of needs for the process of self-actualization. And by going into the sex work industry in increments and in stages, I am my most self-actualized, most fulfilled, most vibrant expression of myself. And I'm literally happy to do this. So I have a strong desire to be of service to people who otherwise would not have access to intimacy, whether it be through disabilities. I have all this experience in the medical field, as well as my hands-on experience, my advocacy experience. So those with disabilities, they don't move through the dating circles the same way the rest of society does. People who are older, who are widowed, who are lonely, people who are young that are just intimidated by how to please a woman. So I'm like, I have all this experience, I have all this compassion, and I have all this desire, and I have like skill sets, shall we say, that I'm known for and can easily demonstrate from the comfort of your home. The thing is I'm good at what I do, and I'm proud of what I do. And I want to be able to impact humans and society as a whole in a way that makes sense, because it's safe, it's sane, it's consensual. I have guys that come in to see me because they don't have the time, energy, and resources. They have the money, they don't have the time, energy, and resources to have to go through 3,600 matches on Tinder. That's work. Like I said, they would rather, they could take a girl out wine her, dine her, spend, a couple $100 on dinner and, going out for the night, and may not get lucky. And then maybe down the road, they may become intimate and they are completely not aligned. Maybe there's just no match to that pleasure factor. Maybe she's just too uptight because she listened to what society told her was good or bad or dirty or shameful or whatever. And here I am, like fully expressed, very kinky, very experienced. And I can not only match their energy, but I can actually amplify their energy. So they were like, I could spend 4 figures an hour on you and save money, because I'll spend that much with somebody that just may not work out. And then you have that uncomfortable conversation of, I need you to show me your STD results. And ethical non-monogamists actually take that very seriously and literally have the results like on their phone at parties. They're like, okay, I got tested last month. But testing is only good as, a short window surrounding that actual test date. I was getting tested back home before I even came here every week, because I take my sexual health very, very seriously. I have never had an STD in my life. So safe sex is mandatory with me, whether I'm in a brothel or not. But by law, condoms are required. And we do what's called a dick check before we even book anything. Like, sexual health is basically guaranteed here, because I get tested every week. Today, actually, right before we did this, today is doctor day. So a doctor comes on site, and every week we get tested. We do the swabbing, we do blood work as well. That gets reported to the local sheriff's department, who, before I even got approved to work here, I had to be fingerprinted, background checked. I had to jump through a lot of hoops to do this. And so when somebody comes through our doors to choose someone such as myself to be intimate with, they're actually saving money. Even though sticker shock, you can really show that it saves money, and the hidden costs later of, let's say you are hooking up with somebody on Tinder and you haven't asked for their STD results, and then you've got the bigger cost of picking up, an STD or an STI. It can be costly in other ways. So I provide a safe, sane, and consensual environment with someone who can relate to people at their most fundamental levels. They can come in and fully express themselves. Some guys come in and they're like, well, I'm too afraid to say what I really want. No, tell me. Seriously, let's make that fantasy happen. Like, having a threesome was a typical Tuesday back home. So if you want to bring another girl in, come on, let's do it. Like, I am all for that, and
Right.
So I coach couples that want to open their marriage, how to navigate that. It's not just a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and they come in and see me. They actually come in and go, okay, how do I navigate this? What happens if, an example would be last week, a couple came in. He had experience in polyamory. She did not. One of the first things I do is make sure that she's not being pressured into anything she doesn't want to do, that they're both in it together. And she was like, I'm curious and I want to do it, but I also want the safe space so that if it's not my cup of tea, that I can back out without apology or without hurting anybody's feelings. And I want to have a hand in who he's with and get to know her. And, and it's a no strings attached situation. There's no entanglement there. There's not going to be drama involved, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm serving society in ways that society probably doesn't think about. And in ways that society assumes are different than what it really is.
I think that's very well said.
And I love it. I genuinely love connecting and seeing humans. I'm actually pansexual. Okay. I started with the bisexual because that's the most recognizable way of saying I'm attracted to men and women. But in reality, I'm pansexual. I accept all humans. I meet them exactly where they are. There is no judgment. There's no shaming. I don't kink shame. I don't body shame. I don't, none of that. Like, you are fully accepted.
You're not going to make fun of me for my
door.
You're not going to make fun of me for my fetish?
No.
I'm just joking.
Not at all. In fact, I'm probably going to show you a thing or two.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I cater to the kink and fetish crowd, but I also cater to virgins. I cater to the businessman who really just wants kissing and cuddling and going out to dinner or going on an out date to go dancing or having arm candy for an event, or a couple that wants to explore in a safe way. I see all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds. A lot of who I see here, because of the cougar element, the MILF element, a lot of the younger guys come in to see me, and they love the fact that I can teach them things, that I can match their energy. I am high energy. Shoot, I have one dude, I usually end up breaking this fingernail. It's broken right now. This is the third time this dude has broken this fingernail doing stuff midair with me. He's strong.
That's funny.
So, like, I have fun here.
Yeah. It sounds
and
like
I get to pick who I party with. A party is anytime booked with me. It's a universal term for a booking.
Gotcha.
If someone comes in and acts entitled or is abusive or disrespectful, I walk them. Like, I'm here for alignment, and the money comes with my alignment. So I turn money away because I'm not desperate to book somebody. I pick and choose. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do anything with. I don't have to do, well, this is the way I say it. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do with anyone I don't want to do it with for anything less than what I want to do it for. I have full command, full free will, full autonomy in my body. I call the shots. And when they come in and we do a lineup and I get picked in that lineup and we do a booking, I'm also picking them. They have to meet my expectations too. And when I say that, it's, I'm not going to judge them, but if they come in and they're giving me any indicators that they are a safety issue, that they may be a problem, let's say they're highly intoxicated, maybe they are misogynistic and disrespectful and entitled, I won't party with them. They have to earn this regardless of how much money they pay me.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's a seller's market, right? So, well, good on you. I got to ask you, I've watched you tell this story before, and you're so confident. And I think that's probably very inspiring for many people that would consider taking or making some of the same decisions you have. But I got to imagine that you haven't always felt so confident in your ways. I got to imagine that sometimes you may have been questioning yourself and wondering, am I, you, like you say, you live that good girl life for your whole life. And I have to imagine that was hard. So my question is, were there times where it was it sounds like you went through a process of redefining your boundaries and redefining what you wanted out of life. Were there times where you wondered, like, shoot, should I just go back? Should I just go back home? Should I just throw it all away? Or were you,
no,
because you talked about incremental. I didn't know if that was the key to it or what.
So here's the thing. I have a whole lot of motherfuckers to prove wrong. Spite drives me in some ways. Okay, so there's that. So I won't lie that I am very determined to show that all of the things that made me successful before are still in me. It still drives me. I mean, one does not get invited to the White House if you're not a mover and a shaker and somebody that people listen to. At the same time, I also recognized and had, it's like peeling away layers of an onion. You have to start with the outer layers, and you might cry in the process. It's not going to be pleasant. Doing your own inner work, and I mentioned Abraham Maslow, the psychiatrist. I'm also going to mention Carl Jung. He talked about your shadow self, your subconscious. I did a lot of inner work. I did a lot of shadow work. In fact, I was teaching and coaching it as part of one of my businesses. I had to let go of my literal identity. I had to peel back the layers that I can identify that did not serve me anymore, such as the codependency. Great example. I would not speak up in a confrontational way with my ex-spouse because I wanted to keep the peace. I didn't want to have him become more agitated, more violent, or anything like that. So I kept my mouth shut. I didn't say what I really should have said. I didn't put my foot down as strongly as I should have. And then that became me getting just walked on and taken advantage of and manipulated and so on. And so I had to learn about narcissistic abuse. I had to learn about a lot of different things and let go of that trauma. There's a lot of betrayal and deceit that happened. And I had to learn how to trust myself, because a lot of times my gut would tell me, oh, this is a bad idea. Oh God, he's up to something. Something is going to happen. And boom, there it is. Well, how many times did I ignore my intuition or my better judgment? So I started becoming really good at listening to my intuition and using better judgment and not trying to keep the peace. And if somebody was rudely shaming me online, I would laugh at it and go, really, you're just projecting your own shame, your own internalized repressed sexual urges and so on. I'm just over here being unapologetic about it. And if you don't like it, you can move on. My block list on social media, scroll. With a few clicks, I can make someone disappear from my realm. Okay. There are some persistent ones. And if you follow me on social media, you'll see me basically trolling my trolls. I make a mockery out of their absurd behavior because nothing they say or do can truly hurt me. I'm good and solid with who I am. So if you want to body shame me, okay, whatever. I'm the one getting paid for these curves. I have people that come in because of these curves. I have people watching my porn because of these curves. Every body size, there's a demand for it. Every single body size, there is a demand for it, both in, say, online sex work, in real life sex work, legal sex work, outside of brothels, there's demand there too. On the burlesque stage, all bodies are beautiful. I'm just here to show that I love my body and that others can love it too. And so this confidence that I have came from going through my most vulnerable and most fragile periods of my life and coming out the other side stronger and better than I was before. It is terrifying to leave all your worldly possessions behind with $12 in your pocket in the middle of the night and go, what the fuck am I going to do? I didn't plan for this. And having your friends rise up and say, you can come stay at my couch. I'll keep you hidden until you can figure out your next steps. Or, hey, I'm sending you some money to put gas in your tank. That was 3 years before I made this decision. I was not desperate when I got here. If I were desperate, I could have gone into sex work the day I left, but that's not what I did. I went into it purposely. because I'm confident in myself, because I know who I am, because I did the inner work, because I let go of those outer layers of trauma and, shedding the belief systems that, I had to be good to be valued. Well, you know what? I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good at being bad.
Just to be sure I understand, did you go into hiding because you were concerned about your safety with your husband?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
now that's why I own the fact that I use my real name, and I'm very proud of doing what I do, because part of that was I'm not going to hide anything anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hiding does not feel good. It was necessary, but I am uniquely positioned. The state gave me and my boys a fake address. It's called the Address Confidentiality Program. So I was able to stay under the radar with the state's help. Now I'm in another state, and I'm literally behind a locked gate in a facility that has panic buttons in every room, that pipes in straight to the sheriff's department. I mean, if I have any safety issues here, I feel safer here at a brothel than I do, say, in my own home. I have more protections here.
Sure. Sure. I would imagine so. So, so I got to ask, like, so you had your first divorce, and am I correct to understand that during that like period between your first and the first time you got divorced and then the second time you got remarried, or the time you got remarried, that's kind of when you discovered that you might be, you said at first bisexual. That's when you discovered that, correct?
Yeah. I'm going to roll this back a little bit.
Sure.
I was very, very confused and conflicted growing up, being attracted to girls and boys. Okay. So it was a lifetime of attraction and confusion and so on. I did not act on it until I started dating a swinger and going to swinger parties and exploring and becoming connected with other women intimately and going, what the hell was I waiting for?
Yeah, you were suppressing that. You were suppressing that. What did you say? The shadow person within you, or what is that? What you said?
It's your shadow self.
Shadow self.
It was like, I didn't make it a secret when I remarried my ex. I made sure he knew. And that it was actually a goal of mine to have an open dynamic so that I could explore, and that he could also equally explore other partnerships. Because when you are monogamous and you're bisexual, you have to pick a gender.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're cutting off the other half of who you are. And I just was like, I'm done with that. I am done with that. And so when I set out on this journey, I was just like dating men, women equally. And that's why the throuple dynamic was so perfect for me. Like I said, I had other partners and they had their partners. Like we're all just one big polyamorous soup of people who support each other. And I'm driven by what's called compersion. Compersion is basically at its essence, if you're happy, I'm happy. So like if my partner is their most fulfilled self, then I get the benefit of that. And if I'm my most fulfilled self, then they get the benefit of that, because there's this happiness and joy and fulfillment that just spills out of me, as opposed to being part of who you are and only saying half of what you want to say or doing half of what you'd really like to do. I mean, that's a life not lived. A life half lived is not what I want to do. And so I was well partnered when I came here, and I adore my partners to this day, but I basically de-escalated, like I kind of downgraded our connection into more of like friends with benefits, because I'm only home. I'm from Colorado. I'm only home every few months. It's unfair to them. Like I basically said, seek what makes you happy. Don't try to hold on to this thing that we have just because it's been good. Let's see where it goes. But understand, I give you my blessing. I mean, they always had it. It's not like it was suddenly I was giving it to them, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm endorsing doing what's best for them, because right now I have to do what's best for me. I love you, but I'm going to go do this thing. And they were absolutely supportive. We still stay in touch. We still catch up, but it's a different kind of partnership now as a result, because my focus is on what I do here. And, it's something that matters to me, and I write about it. I keep things anonymous. Like my client's confidentiality is the utmost importance. Okay. So I write about my experiences without outing them. That's never something that anybody has to worry about. But I also write about the pros and the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly. I write about it from a perspective, as a writer, I can articulate some of the human elements in a way that people understand how profound it can be to have human connection and to make such an impact on clients, majority men, but women as well. I have clients that only come in and see me. I just wrote a story a few days ago over on Facebook about that. And I'm the only one that they feel comfortable with, because we built that trust and we built that connection, and they don't have to worry about me interfering in their life, or, having an episode and going, why don't you write? It's like when they're ready to come in, they're going to come in. I do stay in touch with them in between our visits. I have regulars that sometimes I have one regular come in and party with me 8 days in a row, but then I didn't see him for 2 months, so it can be kind of intermittent. But we stay in touch. Like, how are you doing? Like, I genuinely care about my clients. I genuinely want them to have their needs met and to be able to fill those gaps in a way that makes sense for them and for me. So yeah, I definitely, did I lose you?
Nope, you didn't. I just wanted to share I wanted to pause for a moment to share with folks that we'll have a link to Torrey's page in our show notes. So if you go into the show notes for this podcast episode, you can connect with Torrey on various social media websites, including Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, OnlyFans, FetLife, and so much more. So definitely check out the link in the podcast description. I want to be able to, if you have any questions, if you're really inspired by Torrey, or if you're in Nevada and you'd like to party with Torrey, wanted to give you that option. So
Thanks for the shout out. I appreciate it. I do encourage people to follow along, even if they're just mildly curious. It's very eye-opening because like I said, I'm uniquely positioned. I do have layers of protection in place that most sex workers don't have. They have to use fake names. They are kind of hush-hush about what their experiences are within the walls of the brothel. There's also expectations from the brothels themselves because there's strict regulations about solicitation and so on. In fact, you were talking about crossing the state line. Let me tell you how crazy this is. I'm close to Lake Tahoe, and there is a casino, a resort on the state line. And I can go on what's called an out date anywhere in the state of Nevada. Someone can book me and whisk me off to Vegas for a weekend. Hint, hint, would love to go to Vegas. But the thing is like, I can go on these out dates, but I have to stay within state lines. There is a resort that if I go in one entrance, I'm within the boundaries of the law. I am in state line. If I go out a side entrance to the valet, I have broken the law. It's in the same building. Okay. So like they warned me when you go on an out date, and if they take you to Lake Tahoe, you have got to be very, very, very careful to go in and out the correct entrance of this particular property.
That's so crazy.
Even though I'm in the same building. You know, if I need valet service, I'm screwed.
Yeah, exactly. That's so crazy. And it illustrates.
But I also have a private driver. So yeah, I have a driver 24/7. So I can always put it in the hands of our, you know, chauffeur to make sure that I am not crossing the state lines. But if right. if the client is providing the transportation, I have to be really, really careful not to cross the state line with that client. I can cross the state line just doing my own thing. But in the course of a booking, I must stay within the state line.
Right. In the capacity of your job. That is crazy, that just going through the wrong door. And that is like, that right there perfectly encapsulates the insanity that is this patchwork of laws that we have, whether it's with sex work or drug laws. So you mentioned, you know, the experience of becoming a legal sex worker. I really want to dive into that. I think that a lot of people find this topic fascinating. One of the things I wanted to make clear though, before we dive into it, because some of our listeners might be like, Cole, why aren't you asking about, you know, you mentioned therapy and your transformation and how you found this new identity. And a lot of people that watch this show, you know, are for the decriminalization of drugs. So they're thinking like, did she do drugs to attribute to this transformation? But I've read online, you've said that you didn't, that really this was didn't. Just therapy.
I did research it. Okay. I did a ton of research. I paid the money and everything, but I backed out. Because there was some logistics, I had to actually leave the area. It was during the time that I was on the move. Okay. I had paid the money to do a medicine journey with MDMA, and I had done a ton of research on it. I had done research on mushrooms. I'd done research on everything, basically everything, because I was so open to any type of healing element. So I was in no way, shape, or form like oh no, I'm not going to do, you know, psychedelics or anything. I was like, ooh, I want to know if this is something that would, you know, let's go to the Amazon jungle and do ayahuasca. Like, let's do this thing. Like, I was very enthusiastic about it, but I was also looking at my own situation and the type of resources and the logistics of, say, leaving the country or something to do something like this, which angered me that there were so many studies and they were doing them on the very veterans that I was advocating for over a decade. The MDMA treatments and the ketamine treatments and like all of these different types of healing modalities for, say, PTSD or even traumatic brain injuries. It rewires everything. Right. And so here I am with a spiritual healer who is like, yeah, this is the way to go. And let's talk about that. You know, I had full endorsement from people that I was already seeking healing through about taking it to that next level. I did dabble, of course. I had opportunities where there were some things that were available to me. I was in Colorado, for fuck's sakes. I mean, it is not hard to have availability of these things.
Sure.
So it was a personal decision in some ways to just hold off. Again, I was honoring my gut. You know how I talked about that intuition?
It sounds like it was a personal decision, but it also sounds like it was a personal decision that was influenced by the inconvenience of our laws. You know what I mean?
That is very true.
It's kind of like...
Yes, because there were some other complicating variables going on. I was in a court situation, and, you know, because of the divorce and, like, you know, and I was like,
Yeah, you got to be careful
this
with
would
that, with
complicate
kids and
things. So
stuff.
this is what I did. This is what I did. For my 50th birthday, I booked a one-way ticket to Europe, and I went to a trauma release retreat, basically someone who could go deeper into the whole subconscious aspects of myself. I knew how to the practicalities of shadow work, but I needed somebody who can go deeper into those deeply embedded hooks. And I spent a week in a full immersion retreat in Italy doing trauma release. So I sought therapy in multiple ways. That one was more intense. I have friends who have had great success because the whole court thing with me right now, and the fact that I live and work in a drug-free environment. I could get tested at any time, and I don't want to pop hot on anything. So, I'm drug-free right now, but I endorse it, and I actually enjoy many things that I was able to try. I still have a lot more exploration to go, but I also have a lot more years to do it in. So I'm not in any rush, but you're absolutely right. If it were more available and accepted, and that people were more educated on how beneficial just cannabis alone. We're still fighting the fight about cannabis. Okay, are you kidding me? I mean, this is ridiculous. How dumb do you have to be that you can't look at the studies and the research and the success stories and hello? It is right there in front of us. This literally is life-saving for people. But we're going to sit here and shame it and have a stigma surrounding it and, forbid it and make it hard to get, or make it hard to get it in a safe way, or make it inaccessible because it's so expensive. Even if you go through the pharmaceutical industry to get access to MDMA or whatever, it's cost prohibitive. But yet in the right hands, for the right reasons, it can be a very healing thing. For me, BDSM was healing. I learned how to alchemize. I basically learned how to transmute and have a different relationship with pain. I'm able to turn pain into pleasure. I'm what's called a BDSM switch. I started off as a submissive. I did different types of sensory play, fire play, impact play, needle play, you name it.
That stuff sounds crazy fun.
Yes, I talk about that online a bit. And there are certain spicy sites where it's not even allowed for me to publish it, even though it's safely done. It's there's so many parallels here. The stuff that I do in the BDSM world actually is why I have the whole court thing, and why I got arrested for an ass photo. So, short story. It's a longer story, and I'm writing my book about it. That's part of it. But you can get in trouble. You can get arrested for an ass photo. You can get arrested for, cannabis in certain states. I agree that we need to decriminalize it, but much like the brothel, the legal prostitution industry, we need to not only decriminalize it across the US, but we need to legalize it across the US. There are only 20 licensed brothels in the US. They are all here in Nevada. My brothel gets approximately, according to my head honcho here, who is head of HR and everything, she said that she gets approximately 40,000 applications a year. So we are handpicked, cherry-picked based on our skill sets, our professionalism, our backgrounds, our experience, and so on. So I fill a very unique niche in the market, if you will, because some of the more mature men don't want somebody young. It kind of freaks them out. Some guys go for the young ones, but yet some of the young guys want the more mature ones. Like there's a market for what I do, how I do it, and why I do it. And because I have a proven track record of not only being experienced, but I'm actually someone who can educate about things like polyamory, open dynamics, threesomes, BDSM, the different types of BDSM, kinks and fetishes. And, like I have all this experience that basically were acquired through my lifestyle circles and my own desires and my own kinks and fetishes and relationship dynamics and so on. But like, I can apply that to my healing journey. It's like, why did it have to be so hard to access something like this? Why does it have to be so hard to hire a legal prostitute, to come to a brothel? Why is it so shameful to even go to a brothel? Or why, like we've got people who are doing, desperate people doing desperate things. And that's how in the, on the streets, we're getting tainted, products, and we're getting tainted hookups, and we're getting, things that can kill you. People die because it's not legalized.
Right.
That's asinine to me. It's already proven that it works here in Nevada. In fact, the STD rates went down after brothels became legalized in the 1970s. We don't have a problem with STDs because we're doing it the way we're doing it. And if we had more brothels, we can universally across the nation reduce the STD rates. We could reduce arrest rates, incarceration rates, families breaking up. Like literally, in many ways, I can argue, and we won't have enough time on this episode, but in many ways, I'm actually helping marriages because
I think
not
you're
everything
helping
I do
more
is sexual.
I think you're helping more than marriages in many cases. I think you're helping society, like you say, people that don't have time for relationships or anything else. Like I think that, like you say, if it is a human need, for just human touch, but also intimate relationships. And I'm sorry, but a lot of people don't have access to that, whether or not it's because of their social skills, an actual disability, or whatever else. And so to provide safe legal access, look, this is the thing. When I started to promote the fact that I'd be talking to some legal sex workers, I referred to it as the world's oldest profession. And I didn't come up with that term. I'm not sure who did, but it's so true. I mean, it is a core human need. And if there is a demand for something, somebody can supply for that demand. And if it's between two consenting adults, why not?
Yes.
Why not?
And the amount of regulations and professionalism that exists in like two things. I have a client who openly says how much his wife is appreciating this side of him that she's not been able to see in a long time. He and I don't do any sex. Okay. I'm very creative in getting his engines restarted. And he's able to take that home to her. His need is that he felt broken. I am touching on the human. It is not about his cock. It is about the human carrying it. Okay. And he feels empowered. He feels whole again. I cannot begin to tell you how deeply I am touched and honored that I get to enhance marriages. I got pulled in multiple times for a client who is, I want to be as broad as I can be, because I don't do anything that's identifiable, but he's disabled, former military, but he's a priest. and his wife brings him here. If that does not blow some people's minds, I don't know what will. But like, there are people who need this for various reasons, who have people that love them and endorse them coming here, such as the husband and wife that come in, and they are both excited. Because I do narrow it down. I want to make sure both adults are consenting and one's not being pressured into doing something they don't want to do, because then I will not do it. It's not ethical. Calling for a lineup. Proof I'm at a brothel.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're the first guest.
There's an intercom.
You're the first guest to call in from a legal brothel. It's so
brothel,
cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
So the thing is like, I know that it's frustrating in the cannabis industry or in any other type of drugs that are on the market that end up getting too expensive, too risky, too cut with other stuff. You don't know what you're getting out there in the wild, wild west, right? Whether it's dating, whether it's even in your own marriage. I mean, okay, if your partner is going to go outside of your partnership with someone, I would much rather know that, like my ex, when he went outside of the marriage, he removed all informed consent from me. He put me at risk. He could have killed me with exposure to STDs and STIs. I was more at risk to STDs and STIs than I am here in a brothel. Think about it, right? It's like, how can I possibly get across how much we need to legalize brothels, how much we need to legalize healing modalities that have had studies done, that have helped entire communities of, say, veterans with PTSD or whatever the case may be. Like, we have a lot of parallels here. And that's why I really wanted to talk to you, to say, look, society is taught, say no to drugs. And they're taught, that be a virgin until you're married, and and dedicate your whole life to one man. And like, I shatter all of those molds, saying, but wait, there's another side to this that we haven't even talked about, and people are so afraid to talk about. And for me, it needs to be talked about. It really does. I know my own children, they're adults, they know what I do. Okay. My youngest son, when I first came out to my middle and youngest son, I was going to go public about being polyamorous, about being bisexual.
And really quick, your youngest son was 18 when you started this, right?
That is correct. Yes. Yep. He was 18 the day I left. It was coincidental that he turned 18 the day I left. It just happened to be the day I left was that day. So I wasn't like counting down till he turned 18 so mom can take off. Like, it was, he had to finish his senior year of high school, and he was not a target of what was going on. I was. So he stayed behind, but we had a safety plan in place for him. And we ended up using that safety plan, but we got him graduated before that happened. So he was with me at the time of this conversation. And then his brother came to visit for the weekend and, and see us and so on. So I initially had the conversation with my middle son, and I said, okay, here's what you need to know. Years ago, I was a swinger. I'm exploring polyamory. I am now starting to date. I am going to be public about the fact that I am bisexual. I am now exploring BDSM. There's going to be pictures and blah, blah, blah. Like, I am giving them the ability to object or overcome any of their objections or concerns or answer any questions, because
You're also giving them a little bit of a heads up. You're also giving them a good heads up, because as a kid, like, if I saw my mom, like as an 18-year-old, if all of a sudden I saw my mom, like, doing BDSM on the internet, I'd be like, Mom, what the fuck? Like, not that she's not allowed to do that, like, but how are you not going to tell me?
I have enough respect to tell them first.
Yeah.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
I told my middle son, who had already gone off to college, been in college for a while, out on his own for a while. And he's my stoic one. He's very spiritual. He doesn't get upset or anything very easily, but when he does, it's because for good reason. So I'm having this conversation with him, and I'm not sure how to read him at that point because he just was like stone faced. And I said, so now's about the time. I would love to hear your feedback because you have not said a word and I don't think you even blinked. What's going on? And he just goes, well, now I know where I get it from.
Wow, that's awesome. He
was
was like
so
he was having
relieved.
an epiphany.
He was so relieved because, he has at least this parent, me, who's going to accept him fully for who he is and endorse him living his fullest expression of himself. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, mom, he says, in college, he said, I was so afraid that I would be shunned or something. I was like, he said, not from you specifically, but I knew that if I told you, then dad would know. And I just didn't want to go into that territory. Now
Sure.
that you guys are not under the same roof, we can have this conversation freely and openly. And holy shit, mom, how awesome. Go
Yeah.
Yeah. Then next up was my youngest son. And I thought, okay, he's a little younger, didn't run off to college yet, not as worldly as his brother was. So I have the conversation. He actually interrupted me. I was like, it's this. And then polyamory means, he goes, mom, stop. And I was like, oh shit, this is not going well. He's the one that's going to be upset. He goes, mom, you're talking to a kid that took 2 girls to prom. I know what polyamory is. I identify as, I was like, are you serious? Because the prom was like the weekend before, and I was like, I want pictures because I couldn't, for safety reasons, I couldn't be around for that, which was, kind of regretful in many ways for me. It really kind of crushed me as a parent to not be involved in my son's senior prom. But to be able to find out that he was like, I know what you're talking about. Are you kidding? I'm already this way, And so they were very endorsing because they'd seen the stressed out mom, the mom that kept the peace, the mom that didn't speak up when just to keep things calm, the mom that was being disrespected, and the mom that really went through hell finally being happy again. And they're like, we love seeing you happy. Like, we've never seen this side of you before, and we kind of like it. So keep going, During pandemic, that throuple I told you about, we actually, my youngest son, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, we were all helping our girlfriend move. She was packing some things up, and her mom had come over to get some stuff to put in storage. And that was the same week that the quarantine hit, like the second week of March or whatever, like March 8th or something like that in 2019. No, 2020, sorry. So her mom ended up in the hospital with COVID. And we were like, oh shit, we've all been exposed. What are we going to do? So we decided to combine our resources and all basically be under the same roof at her girlfriend's house because she has a large house. And so my son came with me. And for 2 months, basically, we were all under the same roof. And my son got to see the daily interactions of how we love and nurture and support each other, and how involved we are, and how generous we are with each other, and how basically how we all endorse each other's happiness. And he was like, mom, I know that when you told me, I was like, oh, I know what it is. I identify, I even can relate in this way, and blah, blah, blah. He said, but I've never seen you loved so preciously before. I have never seen you be so well taken care of. I have never seen you just feel safe. And I get to see that now, and I like it. And I want you to keep doing this. And so, I mean, that to me was pretty profound, that my son is like, for the first time in my life, Mom, I see you for you. And I don't see the layers of protection that you had to build around you, and the, you know, the fact that you're valued in ways that I didn't get to witness as a kid. And so he got to see a healthier dynamic. He got to see the contrast of the unhappy, stressed out mom that was in a toxic, abusive environment, which then creates a layer of demonstration to him. And I wanted him to not grow up to be that way towards his future partners. You know what I'm saying? Because we all basically do what we were taught or what we were witnessed to. And even if we know it's not healthy, it's familiar. And so I wanted him to have healthy perspectives on partnerships, relationships, etc. And he got to see that. And he was just really touched by seeing the mom that deserved to be loved the way I was being loved, and happy, you know, the way I deserved to be happy. And so I have to credit my boys for being my biggest cheerleaders, because they saw the mom before and the mom after. And so, you know, it was not uncommon. Like we after quarantine, we all, you know, moved back into my household. The boys moved in, and we, again, my middle son, his industry was shut down. So I said, come on, I'll get a bigger place. And I got a bigger place, and he moved in, and we got to have quality time as a new and improved version 2.0 family. And, but I was still doing photo shoots. I was still doing, I had like a membership at our local BDSM club that had very strict protocols during COVID. Since it was a private membership club, I just paid extra to be a VIP member, and I got full use of a 3,000 square foot dungeon. So I would go and film there. I would, you know, still following COVID protocols and sanitation and everything, but I was able to continue doing the things I was doing before COVID hit. And so I would say, hey, I'm heading down to the dungeon. I'm going to go, you know, film some porn. I got Viking porn today. And, you know, and so I was very open with them about, you know, and I would walk out in like full on leather, full Dom outfit or something. I was street legal as far as my outfit, no nips or anything were out, but like I would go to sex clubs that I belonged to, you know, stay the whole weekend. And I'm like, hey, I'm heading out to the Scarlet Ranch. I'll see you guys on Sunday afternoon. Like I never hid any of what I was doing. And they were just like, okay, Mom, have fun, be safe, you know? And so they got to see how my relationships improved. They got to see how my lifestyle improved. They got to see how healing things like BDSM work for me. It's very therapeutic. A lot of people don't realize it. It's not a replacement for therapy, but it's an enhancement. If you are with someone who is skilled and ethical and so on, there's so many fake doms out there. Oh my God, please. All these men out here that are like, oh baby, I'm going to be your dom. Number one, who are you talking to? You know, you're barking up the wrong tree. Let's first talk about honorifics. You know, you just call me baby. I didn't consent to that. So you've already violated all the dom rules just with that alone. So you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. And here, let me educate you. And by then I've already blocked them. But you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people out there that are abusers hiding under the title of being a dom.
Yeah.
And so I do want to clarify here, when I say BDSM is healing and therapeutic, I am talking about skilled people in that lifestyle who are respected, who are embedded in the community as educators, as presenters. I was a presenter for many different tastings events, like as I learned and as I became known for really being good at what I do, that escalated into now being able to teach it and to, teach others how to do it. So
Yeah.
long story short, like it was very therapeutic for me, but it was also a very dedicated learning process with very trusted people who had a proven reputation. So I'm not saying that you're going to get healing from jackass Joe down the road who's a self-professed dom. Okay, there's a big difference. But I also sought treatment and healing through shadow work and doing trauma release stuff and so on. So like I came into this the most whole and healed I had ever been in my whole life. And so like people think, oh, people who do drugs are they're just, train wrecks. They're, whatever, like they're not educated. They're the dregs of society, or, they're homeless, they're jobless, whatever. Okay. There's some of that stigma that if you do drugs, you are somehow uneducated or uninformed, or that you have come from a broken home, or that you just run in the streets and stuff. And excuse me, but there's a whole lot of high-powered executives and politicians and blah, 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 blah out there that
exactly
are doing way worse or whatever. So it's not about your socioeconomic background. It is not about whether you come from a broken home. It's not about whether you're a good mom or not. It's not about whether you're strung out and desperate. It's not about any of that. It is about how we're all finding less suffering in our own unique ways. I happen to have healed a tremendous amount. I think it was pretty solid when I started, but there were some layers that needed to be shed. Okay.
Sure.
I was already confident, but my confidence grew to this impenetrable confidence. Somebody could like throw an insult at me 5 years ago and it might actually kind of sting. Now I laugh at it. You know what I'm saying? It's like I was already confident, but I am way more confident now. Nothing will get you more confident than stripping on stage in front of a crowd full of people and, have them throw money at you, or having a man come and pick you in a lineup and walk back and say, hey, I'm going to be vulnerable with you right now. And it takes courage to be vulnerable. The most courageous thing you can do is be vulnerable. And I went through my most vulnerable period of life 3.5, almost 4 years ago. And I have gone down this path to a place where, like, if somebody wanted to come work at a brothel, it's not for everybody. If you don't have high self-esteem and high confidence, like solid confidence, if you can't hold boundaries and have high standards, don't come here. Okay, these the girls that I work with, we're professionals. We are educated. We come from different backgrounds. We have professionals that come here, like they're in different, like in the medical field, we have like RNs and pharmacists and like people who are like teachers and stuff. And that's why they have to stay anonymous or hide their face or blur their face, use fake names and so on. I'm Torrey Lisa. It's on my birth certificate and it's on my door plaque,
Well, folks, you heard it. We're sitting here talking with Torrey Lisa. Torrey, I'm going to have to pause just for a moment here. And then when we return, I want to talk a little bit about your experience in the brothel, what you expected and what you actually experienced. And then we'll start to close the show.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Cool.
Okay.
So, all right, Torrey. So we're back. Thank you once again for agreeing to sit down with me. I've had a lot of fun talking with you today, and we've talked a lot about the positive effect that legal sex work has had on people that you've interfaced with. And we've talked about the fact that we think that if, we decriminalized and legalized on a national scale, I truly believe that we would have a better society for that, like with that rather. You mentioned you've talked in the past about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've talked a lot about the good. Can you tell us a little bit about like what your experience has been, and if you've had any negative experiences, or if anything could be better?
Okay, so again, a lot of assumptions and stigma comes into play into this type of work. We do have people that come in that, are misogynistic. They don't value women, and they can be very disrespectful. And like I said, I turn those people away. I don't have to do anything with them, even if they paid me triple my fee. Like I have full power. I'm an independent contractor and I speak for myself. The thing is like, I worry about the people that aren't inside the protection of a brothel. I purposely came here because it's too unsafe. The amount of abuse, violence directed towards sex workers, hate directed towards sex workers, disrespect directed towards sex workers. Like we are the lowest of the low when it comes to society's idea of our value as humans.
Yet you're providing one of the best services. Sorry, I just had to quickly say that.
Thank you, darling. But the thing is like, there are women out there who are independent, working the streets, working, in different types of settings, such as whether it's in their own home, God forbid, because now you're sitting duck for somebody that wants to commit a violent crime against you because they know where you live and everything. Hotels, casinos, like prostitution is going on everywhere. It's going on in your church parking lot. I guarantee it. Okay. There is no place that is excluded for the transaction of a prostitute. Okay. There are escorts out there that provide very high-end, very expensive services that make it a living, and they travel. And I admire the hell out of every sex worker out there that's working the streets and dealing with people without protection, because what happens is, let's say there is an act of violence. They incriminate themselves when they report it to the police, or the police basically, well, fuck her, she's just a prostitute. What does she matter? And don't pursue charges and so on. Okay. There is so much violence against sex workers. And when I say sex workers, not just women, I object to the fact that we don't have male brothels. Okay. We need male brothels. We need brothels with males. The industry is not supporting that, at least not in a widespread way. If I had my way, I would open a brothel myself. Like that may be something, but there's only so many licenses that the state, the regulations on where a brothel can be, the amount of taxes and licensing. I mean, we literally fund the county police department here.
Yeah.
Just
and
with our licensing alone.
Let's make it clear that most people don't know there are no brothels anywhere in the county that contains Las Vegas. It's all outside of that.
Correct. The nearest one is like an hour away, because each brothel has to be it cannot be in a densely populated area. So like the county I'm in is just outside the state capital, where the population at the state capital, I'm literally like a mile from the county line. I'm just inside the county line, but this county qualifies because of the population amount. Yeah. And at the time it was established, let's say there's a population growth. Okay. But at the time that it was licensed back in like the 70s, these brothels existed before it became legal.
in the
Okay,
1800s.
so understand that they've been here for a long time. I'm part of a very famous network. People might have seen the show on HBO. I can't name it out loud, but basically, long story short, there's 4 brothels in this county, all owned by the same network, the same owners, the same previous former owner who made it famous on HBO. So, like, we have to be in an area that has less than, I think, 600,000.
I've got something pulled up right now.
Okay.
So for folks that are watching, if you see on the right side of my screen, the green areas within Nevada is where prostitution or legal sex work is permitted. And by the way, while I'm saying that, is like, I'm not sure. I've been trying to say legal sex work, but I see them refer to as it prostitution. Like, for some reason, I felt like going into this conversation, I felt like the word prostitution was like a dirty word, but is what it
stigma thing.
Is it?
Yeah,
it's
the whole stigma thing. So when I got cleared by the sheriff's department, I had to get fingerprinted, background checked, and all that stuff. I have what's called a sheriff's card. It allows me to work at one brothel. Okay. And I applied through the brothel I'm currently at. I've been here since last year. I'm here full time. I actually, became full time, because most girls come in for a couple weeks at a time, and then they leave and go home to their home state and so on. Me, I'm here full time. I did a few tours, and on my 3rd tour, I decided I'm going to go full time here. So when I came in, though, I came in and I have my credentials and all that stuff, and they do the background checks and fingerprinting, and I get what's called that sheriff's card. And the sheriff's card has my legal name on it, which matches my name here. But it also says legal prostitute on that sheriff's card. So that is the correct term. I have a sheriff's card that says I am a legal prostitute that is allowed to work at one specific brothel. If I decide to move houses, as it's called, because there are 4 in our network in this county, owned by the same network, if I go across the street, because we are in what's called the red light district, it's like a cul-de-sac of 3 brothels, and then across the highway is the 4th one. If I go across the street, I have to go back to the sheriff's department, get a whole new sheriff's card if I switch houses, even though it's all in the same company. But my card says legal prostitute. I was never more proud to be called a prostitute in my life. When I got that card, I was like, I am government certified hoe.
Yeah. What's funny is that before I came in here, Justine and I were talking about something, and I just jokingly said, because I looked at the clock and I was like, oh, it's time to talk to Torrey. So Justine, she's my partner, and I looked at her and I said, you know what? I'm going to go in the other room. I'm going to smoke a joint. I'm going to drink a beer, and I'm going to talk to a prostitute.
I know. Just another day at the office.
Yeah. Just another day. So you mentioned
prostitution is a polluted word. It has stigma. But the thing is that's exactly what I am and what I do, and I'm proud of it. So for me, okay, somebody can call me a whore. And you know how I said 5 years ago that might sting, and it doesn't. I'm proud. Like, you can call me names, but it only hurts if I believe it.
Yeah.
And I know what I stand for and what I do. So you are not disrespecting me or any other sex work by using the word prostitution. That's society trying to denigrate us or to create this insult from words. Like, I have one of my fans sent me a trophy that says, #1 hoe. Like, you can call me a slut, you can call me a whore, you can call me whatever you want. It will not affect me. It might affect another woman in some way, but sex workers are pretty confident people. So it's kind of funny if you try to, fling mud at us. It's like wrestling pig,
nothing sticks.
It's not going to stick.
Yeah.
So when you say prostitution, please know, I speak for myself, but I also think I can speak for sex work workers that I know and work with, we all have had this conversation. It's like, they can call us a slut, a whore, you know, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So
I'm licensed as a prostitute. Yes.
let me ask you about like, again, just kind of dwell. I'm trying to see like if you think, having experienced the sex industry, if there's a better way. You know, you mentioned that there's only 20 brothels in Nevada. It's kind of funny. Up until recently, there were only 21 cultivation centers in Illinois. And let me just put it this way. Let me, you know, you might see where I'm going, but let's just put it this way. Like in Illinois, for example, if you would have asked me how many people are growing cannabis, I'd be like, well, it's got to be in the thousands, but legally it's only 21. Correct. Right. So you also said, you know, if I could open my own, I would, but it's just, you know, I looked into like what the licensing fees cost. Yeah. $100,000. They range from $100,000 a year upwards. And that's just for the license. That's not even building out the facility, all the security that's required. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't know if you...
It's profitable from day one. It's the upfront cost, the licensing. And you also have to buy an existing license. It's not like they can create a new license. So you're basically buying into a brothel that's going out of business. A few weeks ago, went with some of my friends that I work with, and we toured a brothel that had burned down and picked through the rubble. That license and that thing, that's all gone. That's lost history and lost, you know, licensing and so on. We also went to one that's halfway between Reno and Las Vegas. It's in the middle of nowhere, just like most brothels are, middle of nowhere, but it's been abandoned and, you know, vandalized and so on. And, you know, like, it's a shame to see them burn down, close down, shut down, fall down, whatever, because those are precious properties. Even if you leveled the whole building, that license, it would allow you to, you know, build another one. Okay. Right. So buying out a brothel, one brothel outside of Vegas that used to belong to this network and was sold off. There used to be more brothels in the network that I work with, two of which were down in Vegas. Those two were kind of let go, especially after the former owner's death. So the long story short is they're still in operation. They are not owned by the same company that I work for or network I work for. They're under new ownership. So when people buy into it, it keeps the industry alive. Yeah. I would love to be able to buy into a license somewhere and to be able to navigate the complexities of why there's not male prostitutes out here. Because the way the law was written is they have, like, the wording of it was that we're required to have a cervical swab. What if you don't have a cervix? You know, like, it's the laws are really, really wild. Okay.
I've read that there is a process now for male sex workers, and that I think one location employs like a sex worker that offers an interesting experience that like they, you know,
there's exactly. I know there are trans workers. They're very rare. And the thing is like, that community is being underserved. The female community is being underserved. I mean, are you kidding? I would hire a sex worker if I didn't have success in the dating world, you know, like to have an actual safe, and consensual access. I didn't find myself needing that, but more so providing that. But the thing is like, there needs to be more equality in who sex workers are. And there needs to be less of the illegal element that puts us at risk, puts us into violent situations, puts us in situations where in in light of acts of violence or exposures for that matter, there are sex workers out there that are strung out, that are riding bareback, that are not following, safe sex protocols. And I'm not knocking any sex worker right now. I'm just saying we come in all spectrums. And I think that everybody thinks that we're strung out on drugs, that we have no skill sets to fall back on, no education, that we're not smart business people, or that we're, just loose in every way.
Really quick, is it true that the staff there will like search your belongings to make sure you don't have drugs?
Yeah. And the sheriff can walk in without a warrant and do the same.
Are you allowed to have cannabis since cannabis is legal?
Not on site. Now,
are you allowed to use it?
There are some that partake, but they have to go off property. They cannot bring, anything out. Like, one girl thought she was smart. Had something shipped in, and she found her bags outside the gate 15 minutes later. Okay. We take it seriously. We could lose our license. Okay. We have to have a strict no drug environment here.
Why though are you, I'm just trying to understand. Why are you allowed to have alcohol on site?
We do have a bar, but we're not allowed to bring our own alcohol in.
Is it because you have a liquor license as well as a prostitution license?
Which allows us 24/7 serving of hard alcohol. So the girls cannot bring in their own liquor. We have to pay full price, for the drinks, just like any client does. If you are going to partake, because it is legal, cannabis is legal here. We have dispensaries here. You need to do it on your own time outside the property. Wow. Nobody's going to shame you, but we do have to follow the rules set for brothels, which even though cannabis is legal, it's not legal in a brothel.
Bingo. Well, if we back up just for a moment, it's not even about the brothel. It's really about consumption lounges. Like consumption lounges, I think just now got the green light in Nevada. So it's actually possible that maybe in the future, a brothel could get a consumption license, which would then allow you to consume on site. But I wanted to take a step back. Like I was approaching it different. I was approaching it incorrectly. Like it's not even really about the brothel. Like there's not even consumption lounges in Nevada yet. So
right.
It's like, let's slow down here.
We have a long way to go on a lot of things, but I'll be the first one to say, I believe that cannabis needs to be decriminalized and legalized in every state. I do believe strongly that healing modalities in the pharmaceuticals and, like in the right hands, it can do a lot of good for society. In the wrong hands, it can do a lot of bad for society. It's two sides of the same coin. But why don't we steer it towards the legal side where there is more oversight and accountability and adherence and ethics and so on and so forth?
That's just
like
it.
In the brothel industry, we're very ethical here. We are very professional. We take our licensing so seriously that even though it's bullshit that, we can drink alcohol, but can't, have, a cannabis vape on site, it's hypocritical in a lot of ways. I mean, but at the same time, it's like, I get it.
Yeah. Like you say, I mean, you're bringing these things, you're putting it, when you take something out of the shadows, inherently, I think you make it safer. With that said, that's not saying that things can't still happen, but what's great about it coming out of the shadows is that you're less hesitant to reach out to law enforcement or to if you need an ambulance or whatever else. Like you said, sex workers that are not in the legal industry have a lot of hesitation to even report crimes against them because some people are just like, so I wanted to quickly shift as we start to wrap up. I'm very curious. I want to display this just so you can like read along with me. Like I'm just looking at the legal prostitution in Nevada.
And I also wanted to add, people that frequent point, the illegal brothels are putting themselves at huge risk too.
Yeah.
And clients that come here are buying into the peace of mind, and it's we strive to meet every budget, but it's not cheap. You are buying into the peace of mind that comes with you are protected here. Sheriff's deputy walks in our front door, they're our friend. Nobody's going to get arrested. There's no sting going on. Nobody's going to impound your car. The girls here are not going to steal your wallet. We're not strung out on drugs. You're walking into a safe environment. Why can't we have that everywhere?
Right.
So, but yeah, pull that up. I just wanted to point out that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you pointing that out. So the Wikipedia page says the Nevada brothel system has been criticized by activists in the sex workers movement who are otherwise supporters of full decriminalization of prostitution. And I just want to focus on these three because there's other ones that it's like we could get into the weeds on, but organizations and individuals supporting the rights of prostitutes typically favor deregulation and oppose Nevada-style regulation mainly for three reasons. They say the licensing requirements create a permanent record, which can lead to discrimination later on. I don't even know if that's true or what that means. I want you to be able to weigh in on that in a moment. But the next point, the large power difference between brothel owner and prostitute gives prostitutes very little influence over their working conditions, which a lot of the things you've said kind of conflicts with that. So maybe we've already addressed that point, but again, I'll let you expound on that in a moment. The third one, which this is the biggest one that I've ever thought about. Like when somebody said this to me in the past, I was like, holy shit, I've never really thought about it this way. So you mentioned that prostitutes undergo legal and health background checks, but their customers do not. And so the regulations, some people say, are thus designed to protect the customers, but not you, the worker.
So I'm going to give you devil's advocate here. I actually had someone within the court system when I was going through that whole court thing that I told you about, tell me that I couldn't work here. And even though the state of Colorado had no problem with me working here, because I made it no secret, this is where I work. This is how I make a living. The state of Nevada was having an issue with it because there was some documentation that was, being passed between the states. And I had somebody tell me, you can't work there. And I said, why? It's a legal job, just like anything else. And this woman, who we later, I were able to identify that she's one of those activists, was trying to basically blow smoke up my ass and intimidate me and just try to pull a power punch on me. And I called her out on it. I said, do you have something in writing that says that? Well, I'll have so-and-so get that for you, blah, blah, blah. Well, she knew I was on to her at that point, but I said, why? It is a legal job, just like anywhere else. If anything, I've got a sheriff's card. I mean, I have, met the criteria to legally work here. So why are you discriminating against me working here? And she says, it's because it's known that these are her words. She says, it's known that you will be constantly in the presence of alcoholics, drug abusers, and criminals. And I was like, no, we're not. If anything, the grocery store worker is exposed to all those same people. That nurse at the emergency room is exposed, if not more, to those kinds of people. So if you're going to say that I am exposed on a continuous basis to the dregs of society by your standards, and I can't work here, then we need to talk about all the convenience store worker, the grocery store clerk, the, whatever. Now, these people move through society. And these people, the drug dealers, the drug users, the alcoholics, the whatevers, they're pumping gas, they are buying groceries, they are seeking healthcare, they are moving through society without question. So I don't think that we need to background check everybody that comes in. Yes, we check IDs, we make sure that they're legal. But they're not going to be walking in with a gun. Yeah. And if they have drugs on them and we can identify that, we just ask them to leave.
Yeah. But are you worried about the fact that, like, some of the people that you might be having parties with am I correct in thinking you can still pass a sexually transmitted disease with a condom on?
Okay, so it would be difficult. Not
Yeah.
impossible, but difficult. Okay.
But does that worry you that you guys don't even test? I'm just talking about like your working conditions. Do you think that that would be a good improvement if you
So here's the
tested the
thing.
people?
I trust my abilities. We do what's called a dick check.
Yeah.
We do a
Tell
full
us about the
visual
dick check.
inspection. Okay. And if it's a female client, similar genitalia, but
A
we do a
hoo-ha
full
check.
visual. Huh?
The guy is a dick check, the girl is a hoo-ha check.
Yes. So I'm the one that clears them. If there is anything of question, and I have refused people who might have had a shaving bump. Okay, if there's anything that looks out of the ordinary, they don't get cleared, they don't party with me. Okay. It would be illogical in a lot of ways to require them to be tested because testing takes a while, blah, 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 blah. So it's more of a judgment call and an educational thing. Like, we know what to look for. And if there's anything suspicious at all under any circumstances, it's a hard no. If there is any rash, if there's any bump, like anything, no open skin, no cuts, nothing. Okay. So the dudes that freshly shave and cut themselves could very well be turned away, even though they don't have anything wrong. Can someone get exposed to, the herpes, like cold sores, like 80% of the population have it. Okay. If I'm seeing a dude with a cold sore on his lip, those lips are coming nowhere near me, So you know what I'm saying? Like, I know what I'm doing here. And we're much like healthcare workers in the sense that like we have a lot of knowledge about this. At the same time, we're also very, very careful about, safe sex and beyond the condom itself. So there are ways to have intimacy. And here's the other thing. It's not always about the sex. I have clients that come in just to talk.
Yeah.
And just to maybe cuddle or to slow dance and be silly. Or, like on Christmas Eve last year, a client partied in our fantasy suite, which is, our highest upgrade champagne party. And we jumped on the bed and, drank champagne and listened to music and just, it's less about the sex, but the actual sex acts themselves. It is up to me to clear them. I use a lot of discernment and scrutiny. If I think that there's any way, shape, or form that I might be putting myself at risk, then it's a no. Or I may redirect to something that's not quite as much contact. Okay. Guys come in and say, hey, can you go bed rest? Absolutely not. And I need you to leave my room because now I can't trust you to maybe try stealthing me or whatever. Like people will, when people tell you who they are, believe them. Okay. So I turn away a lot of money in those pockets, because my safety is of utmost importance. I do have support of management. Not every brothel runs the same way. I do know other brothel workers in other houses across the state. And they may, even though they're independent contractors, management may say, why'd you turn away that guy? He had $500 or whatever. And they have to justify their decision. Whereas me, nobody's asking me to justify any decision I make here because I act independently. I am an independent contractor.
Yeah. Is it true
that help answer your question? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Have you heard about at other locations? I saw you specifically answer this question in your AMA. You said your location doesn't prevent you from traveling. In fact, they'll provide you with a chauffeur.
Correct.
But I've heard other locations restrict people from like leaving past 5 p.m. or whatever.
So there are some brothels that are lockdown brothels. Once you go in those gates, you stay in those gates and you complete your tour. You do not leave it to go out to the grocery store. You do not leave it to do anything, because the risk here is someone, let's say I wasn't one of them, but I do know that there are independent sex workers who worked in their location in other states where it's illegal. They were escorts. And they have experience as sex workers, but not as a legal prostitute in a brothel. I'm one of the trainers here. So, I'm screening these girls when they come in. In fact, I'm assigned a new girl that just came in today. I'm going to start training her tomorrow. So I do a lot of the training here. So I'm fielding these girls coming in, what their background and experiences. And many of them have gotten tired of the risks and liabilities with being independent sex workers in illegal states, and want to go legal. And so they come in and they tell me their stories. But then I also talk to other brothel workers at other brothels who have, been hired at another brothel. And the thing is some brothels, rightfully so, are concerned that some of the girls will run their own side hustle on the outside of those gates and then bring back risks and so on, exposures to their clients that they may not have used a condom with. I won't party behind somebody who, that might be acting a little sketch because they keep making runs to the casino every night after their shift. They're looking a little suspicious. So I'm not going to party with a client that might have partied with them, because sometimes clients come in, they'll party with one girl, they'll have a breather, and then they'll book with another girl. I won't party behind, as I call it, behind some of the people, because I take my own sexual health very, very seriously. Yeah. There are only a select few people that I will do like a 2-girl party with, like threesomes and so on. My particular location allows us to come and go. Okay. We get a lot of freedoms here, whereas other brothels, you're on lockdown. Some brothels, their working conditions aren't very good. The girls have to do a lineup 24/7 and just hope to catch sleep in between bells.
Yeah, I've heard.
And they get fined if they miss a lineup because they slept through it or something. Here we have actual shifts. So my working conditions here, oh my God, my quality of life is amazing. I have full-time housekeeping. I have a full-time cook. She'll make me made to order breakfast. I have a full-time driver 24/7 to take me wherever I want to go.
Do you have health care?
No, I do not have health care. We do have an on-site clinic for the purpose of doing our testing, and a doctor that's state approved that comes on site. But in order for me, I need to go to the eye doctor. I need to go to the dentist. I need to go to the doctor, whatever. I'm here full time. So I'm fortunate that I get to come and go, but they also can search my room. They can search what the bags of stuff I'm bringing in. And I'm okay with that. I would rather them know that I'm not doing something illegal outside of the brothel. They trust me here because I don't have a side hustle. But some girls will try to juggle a side hustle with brothel work, and they do not last long here.
Yeah.
They tell on themselves very quickly, and none of the girls are going to party behind a girl like that. And I'm not saying they're dirty. I'm not saying they're unethical. I'm not saying that that's what all of the independent ones do outside of brothel walls, but the risk is there. Therefore, we are not going to take on that risk, because we can lose our license. We can have exposure to somebody who just, partied with a guy with no condom, whatever. Here, I know condoms are being used.
Yeah. So forgive me. I know we're way over our time, but I just got into some, no. I'm sorry. If you're fine, I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Now I'm good. I
just feel like we just got into a really good. So, I was under the impression that you did have healthcare. Like when I was in high school, here, I'll actually kind of reveal, a little bit about myself. One of my classmates, former classmates, worked in network with you. I won't say where, but they were in a news coverage. And they were talking about the fact that they could get Obamacare at the time. And of course it was, prostitutes can get health care. And it was like painted really negatively, but a lot of your,
that was for the uninsured, underinsured, and so on as well. And here's the thing. I do have health care through other sources. However, I am a 1099 contractor. I am not an employee here. I pay my own taxes. I get I pay my own Social Security. Like, I am someone who, could be like a consultant on the outside. They get a 1099, they do contract work. I am on contract. So I am responsible for my healthcare. I am responsible for, my taxes and Social Security and Medicare and all that stuff. I have to pay all of that.
Yeah.
So,
is it true that the house will take like 50% of your earnings?
Each house is different, but industry wide, that's a pretty common number.
Gotcha. So you got to come up with a number that's going to be worthwhile for your establishment, but also yourself.
Correct. But at the same time, the house is providing a lot of safety, security, amenities, and so on. So basically, it would be like a hairdresser paying for their space at a salon. Okay. It's, the house gets their cut, I get my cut, because they are providing not only the space and, this is a resort style facility. This is one of the higher end ones that I work at. Not every brothel is the same as far as what their amenities are or, benefits are. We have 24/7 courtesy chauffeurs that will come and pick you up at the airport, at your hotel, whatever. Like we provide a more luxurious experience for our clients than maybe some other brothels do. But I am basically just, quick equivalent, a hairstylist, a hairdresser at a salon who buys the space for the chair. They're paying the rent. So I pay room and board, and I get, I have maintenance crew. I had a leak in my shower the other day. Maintenance man comes in and fixes it. I don't have to worry about it. I just put in a work order.
Yeah.
So I'm well taken care of here. So I have no problem with the house getting their cut because they are taking good care of me.
Yeah. Is it really tough to move between locations? One of the parallels I see between what you mentioned, how that works in the legal sex industry, but the way it works in the Illinois cannabis industry is that you're licensed to work at one location, and you have to get badged with the Illinois State Police to work at that location.
Yep.
And you can't just say, fuck this place, I'm going to this place. Like, you have to go through that whole registration again. And in some cases, it actually keeps workers from moving to a new location. Do you find that regulation inhibits it all, or do you think it makes sense?
I really think that there's such a high demand for, okay, so when you got 40,000 people all vying for the same position, okay, you have to have a really good reputation to be picked up by another house. In other words, you have to be profitable. You have to demonstrate that you're profitable and that you have skill sets that meet the needs of their clients. So let's say I do move to an entire, completely out of this network and into an entirely different brothel, let's say out in Vegas. Yes. Number one, I'd have to convince them that it's worth having me hired amongst all the other candidates. Now, it does give me a bit of a leg up because I can prove my numbers. I can prove my success rate. I can prove that, I have, a client following and so on. I can prove the skill sets and so on. The uniqueness of me will get me hired above, say, somebody else that's never worked in a brothel. It does give me more of, an advantage to be hired, but it doesn't guarantee I'll be hired. And then number two, or when I say hired, not as an employee, but, contracted, getting a contract. And then, yes, I have to go and get my sheriff's card in that particular county. I basically would be starting the whole process all over again. I pay for my own testing every week, so like as an independent contractor, in addition to the taxes and so on, I provide all the condoms, all the supplies. I pay for my own testing. Like, there's a lot of overhead as a legal prostitute that is absorbed into my business model structure and rate structure. So like, I provide a large menu of options because I have a lot of experience in a lot of different things that are highly specialized.
Yeah.
So I'm more easily hired than somebody who is maybe 20 years old and has never had a threesome and doesn't know what BDSM is. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I have a lot of experience. So I don't worry about whether I would get hired elsewhere, but at the same time, very little opportunities open up because the sex workers that do come into this industry generally stay in it and don't bounce around a whole lot.
Yeah.
And they try to go for, the houses like the one I'm at that has not only name recognition, but it also has the quality of life that I'm given. Not every brothel has a driver, let alone, housekeeping or a chef or maintenance. And, so I work at a more upscale location and I'm treated well here too. So you're going to pay more for me here as opposed to if I went to a brothel that didn't have all those amenities and securities and quality of life stuff built in. My rate structure would probably go down to be competitive because I'm not buying into the whole quality of life of the amenities that they provide because they're not providing them,
Yeah.
So it's pretty competitive here. And I'm very fortunate and privileged to do what I do. So I don't take it for granted either. If I do ever move to another house, I will look at the overall big picture. What is my quality of life going to be? What type of clientele is going to be there? Some brothels are on the highway and they just get nothing but truckers passing through, like here I have a local client base. I have a very dedicated client base. I already have a following where people who are already familiar with me and may have never met me are planning a trip to come out here just so they can spend time with me, things like that. I have a client that flew in a couple months ago. He partied with me for 3 days straight. He loved it so much. He's rebooking for 7 days straight in September, so like I have a good client retention rate.
I thought you said you don't share personal information. Why are you telling people about our plans in September? I'm joking.
Darling, don't threaten me with a good time.
So, hey, I want to close with this topic that we kind of already touched on, but I just want to circle back around to it. Do you think that it could be done a better way? I know beggars can't be choosers. Nevada's the first to do it and the only to do it, but it's so hard from what I understand to open up a brothel. Should it be easier? Why are there only 20? Like, do you agree that that's like, that's an issue? Again, I know beggars can't be choosers, but like,
it's already been proven. So why aren't we replicating it?
Yeah.
And yes, there are some things that could be better. We need to be serving more clientele with, prostitutes are basically, when you say the word prostitute, somebody imagines a woman, a sultry woman, right? Well, prostitutes are actually every walk of life, and we need to have more diversity in representing all humans in every gender identity. I believe that we need to also still have the oversight and accountability, but let's be real here, okay? If we're in a legal state for cannabis, like you said, why can't we get a license so that it can be smoked on site? Why is it so hard? Why do we have to risk an alcohol license, a liquor license, if somebody walks in with a little, 2-ounce bottle of Jack in their pocket? Like it's too regulated in some ways. But I also support and endorse the high regulations that we have for safe sex, for the condom use and all that stuff. 100% endorse that. I think that we will see vast improvements in society when we get our heads out of our asses and quit thinking about it being a moral and ethical thing when we are operating morally and ethically. We're just getting, the Bible thumpers and the activists that are like, oh, sex is bad and dirty and shameful, and oh, you're a horrible human, when really we are the most compassionate, most professional, most dedicated humans that you could put in charge of caring for other humans and caring for them in ways that matter. And I just think that we all need it. We all need comfort. We all need healing. We all need, our society would be so much better off if we had those outlets to have a more joyful life and a meaningful life. And there's too much suffering going on out there for us to not look at it.
Well said. Well, I want to thank you for your service to society. I want to thank you for your time. I'd love to sit down with you again in the future. I feel like there's so much more we could talk about, but I don't want to take too much more of your time. I'm also going to go out and probably enjoy a good late night snack with my partner. So
yes, munchy time.
Yeah, you know it.
Hey,
it. So
you've got to try the toffee Oreos, dude.
Ooh.
Have you had toffee Oreos yet?
No, that sounds delicious. You're
okay.
setting us up for something to try tonight.
I just planted a seed for you, but listen, I want to thank all the viewers. Number one, thank you for listening. Thank you for having an open mind and an open heart about a topic that is typically shied away from or, hush hush. I do feel privileged that I can speak openly about what I do and why I do it, and that I get to live a life that is transparent and authentic. So the fact that you stopped and listened to this is quite an honor for me. So thank you. And Cole, thank you for having me on here. I know that we're all on the same team. Not everybody may understand it, but the more that we talk about it, I think the more acceptance we can get. So I'm happy to talk with you anytime. And if people have questions, feel free to reach out, follow my socials. Like I said, I'm very open, as long as you're respectful. Otherwise, a couple clicks and you're gone.
Yeah, exactly. So be nice, folks. We'll have Torrey's contact information in the show notes. If you like what you saw, wink, wink. She's got an OnlyFans and FetLife. So there's your opportunity to actually procure some of her legal sex services. I'm very generous
with my free content. So there is that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, if you go to Nevada, if you connect with Torrey online, you can maybe party with her. So take that opportunity if that's something that interests you. Torrey, once again.
I give free tours to whoever shows up on site. Whatever happens after that.
Cool.
What happens in the brothel stays in the brothel.
Hell yeah. That's what we like to hear. Yeah.
Much love to everyone out there.
All right. Chillinois. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
All right.